Hey, what's up, guys? I know I've been saying for a while I wanted to do a little kind of home studio tour here, home mix room really. So here it is. I'm going to show you my current setup here and kind of talk about what I've got going on. So I spent about 7 years in a small project studio. It was about 600 square feet. I had a small live room and a small control room, and that was great. Served me very well for many years. Made lots of records in there. Um, but eventually I started focusing more on just the mixing side. So it got to a point where, I was paying to have all this gear and all this space in the studio, but I was really just going in there to sit in front of my speakers and mix. And the live room was empty a lot of the time. So eventually, just with other life changes and stuff too, I was buying a house. Decided to get rid of that project studio, sell a lot of my tracking gear, rack gear, and stuff, and just switch to a home mixing rig. So that's what I've got going on now. So let me switch the camera around here, and I'll show you the room. So this is just one of the rooms in my house upstairs, and I've got my mix workstation set up right here. So now, let me say first off the bat here, this is kind of a temporary solution. So I might be using this for a few years, and then eventually, if I move to a bigger house or something, I'll probably try to get a bigger mix room, where I can have a more ideal setup here. But for now, this will do the job for me. So let me first talk about treatment. I really don't have that much treatment in this room. You can see I've got two 4-inch panels back here. This is compressed fiberglass, or whatever it's called, the Owens Corning 703. So 4-inch panels here, and then I've got some at the back of the room as well. So that helps. It's pretty good. Now, I've got to say, I know that this treatment isn't ideal right now, but like I said, this is not a long-term solution for me. So, to put stuff on the ceiling or all up in the corners for bass traps and stuff, I don't want to mess up this room so much. So that's why I've just kind of got the bare essentials in terms of acoustic treatment. I'm not looking to totally transform a room in my house right now, because, in a couple of years, this might not be a mixed room anymore. So that's why I don't have stuff that I normally would have in terms of acoustic treatment, corners, maybe a ceiling cloud, stuff like that, which if I move to a longer term mixed room, I would definitely be looking at that stuff. So that's that, and let me switch the camera again here. Some people have pointed out or asked me why I have my mixing position set up pretty close to a corner here, which is absolutely true, as you can see. And again, it's basically because this is not a long-term solution, and it's just the room has its limitations. It's a small room, and yes, it would be better if I had my whole mixing rig a little bit over here towards the middle of the room, but then I've also got to have room for this rack, and I've got a closet here. And again, I'm not looking to totally transform my room here. So that's, it's not been a big deal. Once I got some of this treatment up and I moved the speakers a little bit out from the wall with this new desk I grabbed, I've been pretty happy with how the mixes translate. And I'm so used to mixing on these NS10s that, even in a room like this, I'm getting fairly consistent results that are translating pretty well. All right, on to the gear. So let's start at the rack over here. So I have got an old Pro Tools 8 HD Accel rig, and that's in my Mac Pro tower here. This is a 2009 Mac Pro, pretty much full of everything I can have in there in terms of hard drives and everything. It's got the 2 HD cards in there, and it's still working pretty well. I think it's an 8-core, or maybe even a 12 or 16 core. I don't know. I can't remember. I'm not much of a computer nerd kind of guy, but yeah, it's still running pretty well. So this is my 192 interface. At the bottom there's my Yamaha power amp for the NS10s. I've got a patch bay here and a Distressor, which is kind of the only piece of outboard gear I kept from my other studio, and then the central station up there, and that's for my monitor controller. So in addition to that old Pro Tools 8 rig, I've also got a new Apogee Duet. And this is going to be for my new mixing setup, which is going to be on Pro Tools 12 native. And I decided to go for that because my old Pro Tools 8 HD rig, while it's still solid and I can mix on it well, it's just got to the point where I can't collaborate with people as easily. You know, there's compatibility issues, and especially plugin issues. You know, it's hard for me to try out any new plugins or get any updates or anything like that with such an old system here. So that's why I decided it was finally time to upgrade to the Pro Tools 12, and I decided to go for the Duet because just mixing at home, I don't need inputs. I just need some outputs, right? So this thing has, I think, 2 in and 4 out. And, you know, if I do need to use like the Distressor in a mix setting, then all I need to do is basically patch in from the main outputs of the Duet and go out through the Distressor and record it back into my DAW. And that's no problem there. And it's pretty rare that I do that. So I got the new Pro Tools 12 rig, but I needed to actually keep my old Pro Tools 8 HD setup because for so many years, probably 7 years of mixing, I used the HD rig, and I had this thing called Heat for Pro Tools, which is just kind of some analog summing, modeling and stuff. You can look that up if you want, but Heat was only compatible with TDM, and now you can get it on HD native systems, but I didn't really want to spend $5,000 just to get Heat. So I decided to just keep my old HD rig here with Pro Tools 8 in case I need to do some recalls, which does happen from time to time. You never know, you might get some band, you know, 3 years later saying they need a stem for something they're playing live or whatever. And I've got so many records that I've made on that old system, I can't just get rid of it. I'm gonna keep that around just in case I need to do recalls. Plus, I can pull up old mixes that I've done so that I can do some mix walkthroughs and some examples for you guys as well. So I've got this working is on my Mac Pro here. I've just got multiple system hard drives. So when I boot up the computer, I can choose to boot it from the new one with the new version of OS X and Pro Tools 12, or I can boot from a different hard drive which has Snow Leopard, I believe, and the old Pro Tools 8 setup. So that's a pretty convenient way to do it. I can have all my stuff hooked up, and it's just a matter of, you know, restarting the computer and booting from a different system. I've got both the HD outputs and the Duet outputs running into my central station. And the reason that's good is because up here I have the remote, and depending on which rig I'm using, the Pro Tools 8 or the Pro Tools 12 rig, I can just use a different input on my central station and not have to switch the patching of any cables or anything like that. So again, I was getting some questions about why I was using the central station when I have the Duet, but that's why, so I can switch back and forth between the two rigs here. So that's almost it at this point. You can see I've got my MacBook under here. I usually just have that plugged into my monitor, and that's where I do most of my business kind of work with, you know, the website and all that stuff. And I, again, will just switch the input on my monitor here to go to the laptop, and I've got both my keyboards here for the different computers here. Hopefully that doesn't seem complicated. It's really, really simple, actually. I mostly just use this Mac Pro here for the audio stuff and my laptop for everything else. And I've got a Faderport here. I just got this recently. I haven't used it a whole lot because I used to have a bigger 8-channel Command 8 control surface, but I got rid of that when I moved the studio home. And I just missed having the actual physical fader here. I really rely on that for automation and stuff. But as you can see here, I've just discovered the new Pro Tools Control app for Pro Tools 12. So I've been messing around with that, and it's actually pretty good. There's not really any latency issues when it comes to doing automation. It's a little hard, you know, you can see how small these faders are compared to this. So when you're doing kind of subtle automation on a track, it's a little bit hard to get used to this. So I don't know, I might keep around the Faderport just for that purpose, but I'm pretty happy with this little app here. It's a little easier for me to grab kind of multiple faders and switch stuff around quickly without having to use my mouse, which is a big headache for me. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough of my home mix room here. The main reason I wanted to do this is just to show you, like, you don't need a crazy setup to get some good results. So like I said, is the room ideal? No, it's a small room in a house just with really minimal acoustic treatment, but the things that allow me to actually be able to mix in here is the fact that I've just been doing it for so long that I really know these speakers here and I know how they're going to sound. So as long as I have some treatment here and I spend some time learning this room specifically, I can get mixes to translate still. So keep that in mind. Don't get too worked up about gear and everything. And, you know, again, I'm still using a 2009 computer, and I've just upgraded it a little bit so I can work with Pro Tools 12, and it's moving along pretty fast. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this. Take care. Shoot me a comment here with any questions or anything, and I will talk to you guys later.